Hi, I'm Christine Russo, and welcome to What Just Happened. Today I'm with Pano Anthos, founder and managing director of XRC Ventures. Welcome, Pano. It's really good to see you. How have you been?
Very well. Business is very good. That's
Well, let's get into it. We want to
that's
hear
very
all about it. So,
yeah.
welcome, Pano. Brief overview. Feel free to tell everyone what it is you've been up to.
We care about the consumer first and foremost. That's our number one concern. We don't really focus on enterprises for enterprise sake. We don't do ERP systems or HR systems or payment systems if it doesn't affect the consumer directly. So back office and such like that. We're not involved with it all. Team of 12 focused on about 140 startups and growing across 3 funds that works multi-level from earliest pre-seed, pre first money in to very later stage support in funding around the intersection of consumer behavior and the changes in that consumer behavior and advancements in technology.
Excellent. Thank you. How are things today in terms of the state of venture?
In general, I think VCs are scared. A lot of them are scared about investing right now. I think is being well publicized, which is a lot of venture funds are sitting on their hands and not doing much investing. That actually is because they've got a larger problem. Many of them have inflated valuations that have been dropping like a stone, really following the public market devaluation that's been going on. So I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal article on 23andMe, it's lost 98% of its value, right? So when you have that kind of compression in the public markets, it flows over into the private. It's just less visible. No one's talking about it. They basically are licking their wounds quietly. If they don't have incredible conviction and it's just not an absolute home run. So anything that's kind of, break even, it's not profitable, or the growth is only X percent per month, it gets killed. There's no home for it because no one wants to take that level of risk in today's market, which we think is a huge mistake. And so we're very active in this earliest stage of investing. And we've never seen in the retail landscape. So let's talk about retail. And of course, AI has been going crazy, although AI has already hit their plateau and it's actually seeing a decrease in investing for anything but the very best companies. So just putting AI in your name or claiming you've got AI in your system, AI is going to be as ubiquitous as water is and as essential as water is, but it's not priced. Even the premium waters that are out there just don't command that kind of premium price. So you're going to do that with AI. So anyway, so that kind of hill has already been climbed and fallen. And now we talk about retail itself, and we're seeing a great deal of activity in the retail consumption of technology space. Retailers are actively piloting, they're actively looking to improve their operations. They're also looking to make more money. So if you're in the retail media network space, you're a hot commodity right now because every retailer is trying to figure out how to monetize all the impressions that consumers are in physical stores and running around doing. If you're a retailer, you care a lot about theft. And so you care a lot about what's going on in your store. And so this notion of spatial intelligence is really important. If you're a retailer, you care a lot about delivery costs, both returns and initial shipments. And so you're looking for any way to get as close to the consumer before that product needs to leave the warehouse, the store, to actually get to that consumer. So there's a lot of compression going on in the market to become more efficient because prices are not going to go up. New categories of products are hard to find. And so you got to be better at what you already do in most cases. Without that expanding your footprint, you just can't open up stores. Investors won't tolerate that in most cases. So it's a good time to be servicing retailers.
Pano, I'm going to push back on you. It's not that rosy out there. So I'm going to need you to really pull the curtain back. Tech companies are having a really hard time connecting and selling into retailers. They do need solutions, but they're not necessarily signing up across the board. There's a lot of hand wringing and head holding on the tech supplier side of like, what's happening? Why is this taking so long to close? So the dance partners are there, but it's not necessarily like everyone's grabbing hands and running off into the sunset at rapid pace. You want to push back on me on that, or can we get into it?
Yeah, so we typically are looking at right now about between 1,000 and 1,500 tech companies in the consumer commerce enablement, sustainable commerce, our kind of categories. You're not wrong. You're quite right. If you look like every other software solution out there, then you're absolutely going to get crushed in today's market because it's too easy to build a proof of concept or a first version of something. But if you've got real IP and you're doing something different, if you're not addressing a big problem and a big market with a unique solution, yes. If you are one more, I don't know, what should we use as an example? Traffic counter system. Okay. You know how many traffic counter systems are out there, right? It's like, really, there's just not that much newness to that and something they can't already get.
What about like personalization?
Audience segmentation and one-to-one marketing, right? Wherever you are, whatever channel you're talking about. We've been preaching first-party data for retailers and brands forever and work hard to get that first-party data. Really don't just give me a 10% offer like everyone else in the world. Do something different to really establish a sense of loyalty and trust that says, I'm giving you my email address. I want to hear from you as a consumer. So we come at it from the lens that most retailers are not offering anything of great value to most consumers, right? Consumers already know what they want. 50% of all search traffic goes to Amazon, and the rest and even there, you're not getting that much browsing going on because literally these websites were built literally with technology and paradigms from the 2000s, early 2000s. The websites haven't changed. We still have faceted search. We got a really kind of crux, kind of stupid model for discovery today. So what we're thinking a lot about is what's going to be after this. So we're not trying to automate bad website design and systems. We're trying to think, if I were a consumer, how would I want to discover product, right? And then work backwards from there. So we are actively looking, and haven't found it yet, by the way, but we think that the future is the butler, the virtual butler that knows my calendar, knows what I've been wearing because I've been buying either through Amazon or through whatever the platforms are. And I give over my information to my butler so that they will do a better job, but a really great job, not a crappy job. Most personalization systems are junk, right? They claim, oh, answer these 20 questions and we'll tell you what to buy. And they're always off and they're always generic. They're never really nailing it. And also consumers don't want to spend a huge amount of time answering 50 questions, right? So what happens is you need to have an inference engine that basically picks up my behavior, kind of like spell check does. If you're using Gmail, you're automatically answering, just because you use the product, you're automatically getting the inference of how to spell the word or the right word to say. And yes, it's wrong sometimes, but it certainly is more facile than not. So I think of personalization as really, if we're going to be personal about this, then you got to understand my human needs, wants, activities, et cetera. And that's still a ways away, but I would say it's 2 years away, 3 years away at max. It's a lot of money is going into it to try to figure it out because everyone wants a butler. Everyone does. I mean, everyone wants an assistant, right? A personal assistant. We all think of that situation where that person is so amazing that they're just answering the questions before they're asked.
You want to go on somewhere, let's call it a GPT of some form or the equivalent, and say, and I think at this point we've all done it, I'm going to Milan for the weekend, plan for me 3 outfits and suggest 2 gelaterias that I should go to. And and here are the days. So, bring a light sweater. You won't need this. It's rainy season. You might need that. And off it goes. So it's conversational, it's highly personal, and then it's suggestive. You're not pushing a rock up a hill, which is what search has turned into.
Absolutely. Now, what it does require, so I don't think we're going to be investors in the application that builds that because I think it's already being built, right? As I said, I think whether it's DeepMind, there's a bunch of others also tackling the same challenge. I think where the opportunity exists and where brands and retailers are not yet is the same situation that happened in mobile. They were behind when the mobile phone came out. Mobile phone came out and they didn't even know what mobile web was. They didn't know what mobile apps were. They were way behind the curve, probably 5 years at least. We think the same thing is happening right now, that they're really not thinking through the migration of traditional website design and content into feeding these chat engines and these LLMs, if you want, to basically build this. Or they've got to come out with their own LLM and then have LLM to LLM integration, right? Which is another model. And candidly, we've been working with a number of the big real estate operators who have big retail properties and saying, you got to build a proprietary LLM that gives you a full view of your data set in a new and different way that then is serviceable to outside parties. You know, you have to open the kimono up. You have to let this information ride because you're going to get much better self-service, determination, qualification, solutions, and the consumer's going to be happy. And if the consumer's happy, they're going to come back to you time and time again.
That's based on the assumption they have that data. And I actually don't know that they do. They're having their uh-oh moment, which is like, oh, shoot, we missed the boat. And so now there's a little bit of backpedaling. I mean, they're really, it's like anyone who paused for 5 minutes and thought, maybe we'll think about it, is really far behind now. And I don't know if I have that right perspective. I'd love your input on that.
I think retailers are realizing they can't wait that long anymore. I don't think they appreciate, especially the brands don't yet, that this next wave of search is going to separate adults from children with respect to ease of access, like Amazon did and disrupted an entire e-commerce industry, with every brand thinking, oh, I don't need to put my stuff on Amazon. They're going to come to my site, which is, you know, hooey, completely ridiculous, right? So now everyone's on Amazon and they're using it as a test market. So all the CPG brands put product on Amazon to test it. They're not putting it in stores first, they're putting it on Amazon first. So you find that, you know, this kind of next wave is going to do something equally, I think, compelling. What we can't see yet, but we're certainly open to this discussion and dialogue, is what are the applications? It's kind of like the internet. Like when the internet came out, it opened up buying channels that never existed before. And we kind of look at the search next wave of discovery as being the next wave of channels that haven't ever existed before and new ways of discovering product, virtually or otherwise. I'm not a big metaverse fan, and there's a whole story behind that. But the idea that, you know, answer my question and I'll give you my money is a really standard practice consumer behavior. It's just, you know, don't answer my question, I'm leaving and going somewhere else. So, and why Amazon got the lead it did was because they built a search engine that was decent. It's not great, but it was decent, you know, and it was so far ahead of everyone else. Remember, Target was using Amazon as their e-commerce provider up until 2015. Scary as that sounds, right?
Very interesting. Thank you for reminding us of that. That is really fascinating.
So we are looking for what is that next paradigm shift around AI that is going to be fundamentally different from the way we actually work and behave today as we consume. So your search example,
Sorry.
No, your search example is a great one. It's the right question, right? Which is, I'm going to Milan. Actually, you shouldn't even have to say you're going to Milan. You should have the chat engine tell you, hey, I see you're going to Milan in 2 weeks. You've got nothing in your closet that works for this market. You're going to the opera, you're not dressed, you don't have anything in your closet for this. People would die for that kind of responsive, proactive behavior.
Sign me up for that. I want that.
I know, we all do. That. We all want to be dressed. We all want a butler.
Getting back to like the data piece and how to maybe pivot away from these ancient legacy architectures. Like, okay, we have our data, we're in the cloud.
How do I make my migration? How do I make my data accessible to these chat engines or these LLM architectures that let me make decisions much more effectively and get me my butler? And I do think there are migration paths that people are seeing. They call them private LLMs. You know, you're seeing a lot of activity. And I think just like everyone had a database or built a database in the 90s and 2000s, they're all going to be building LLMs. And just like how everyone moved to the cloud, everyone's going to have a private cloud. Now you're going to have private LLMs. So it always goes this way, right? You've got this kind of consumer first, open-ended solutions that get built for everyone to just try, right? So think of Netscape as a browser, right? Everyone got to use it for free. And then what you started building were these little fiefdoms. And cloud was something that, you know, first of all, you had to use Amazon. Now you can have your own cloud, private cloud. So you're going to see that kind of proprietary spin on these LLMs. And what you're going to do is then have APIs that make it available to said services and every service, just like search engines. You know, you make your website available to a search engine. Why? Because you want to be found. It's not that different. So now you're going to make your LLMs available to chat engines because you want to be found. You're talking about customer enrichment and customer centrism, and I believe in that. And it builds loyalty and everything else. But if you don't have the product set, if you don't know what the consumer is buying, right? And have a complete archetype around that. And all you've got is how much they've spent versus what they've been buying and the frequency. And this is why subscriptions don't work today. I'm shifting gears a little bit. You want to basically be able to say the best consumer is one who buys frequently from the same brand, because the brand gets that loyalty. That's what loyalty is about. Come back and keep buying from me as opposed to someone else. Great. So what triggers that loyalty and that repurchase? Well, sometimes it's just reminders. Hey, you're running out of dog food, or we've seen your consumption patterns. But doesn't exist today. Today it's, okay, you set the subscription up for the 1st of February. When do you want us to send the next bag? I don't know, nor do I care. I want you to tell me based on my consumption patterns. Amazon can't do that. We actually have a tech that can do it, by the way. It's really very cool, called AdRich, and it essentially is a super thin wafer. It's applied to external packaging, not transparent, but usually opaque packaging, because like a bottle of Tide or you can't see how much you've got left in there. And so often or a bottle of olive oil, you can't see what's in there because it's opaque by definition. It'll automatically registers as it's being used, the consumption pattern and frequency, and exactly predicts when it needs to be reordered, including delivery and transit time. So it's at your door as you're using as you're ending your previous bottle of whatever. So it's the idea that it's proactive as opposed to reactive. Everyone's reactive right now. You tell me what you want. As a consumer, I don't have time for that. So that's why subscriptions fail badly in the consumables market, because you can't predict it accurately. And then it happened to us again. 2 bags of dog food. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's going to be a good place to be. Let's talk a little bit about returnity innovations. I saw a recent post that you made about that. Would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So we were the first investor in this concept, which is, look, we all would love to solve the consumer plastic bag problem or the paper bag problem coming out of shopping centers. That's changing consumer behavior. That's really, really hard. Changing consumer behavior, there's only a few companies in the world who've ever changed consumer behavior, Apple being one of them. And no one of our startups is anywhere near got the weight of an Apple right now. But what they can do is look at existing patterns of behavior at various levels and find better mousetrap. So B2B shipments, your Levi's, and you're shipping from your warehouse to your distribution center or from like your manufacturer, that is all internal. There is no reason you can't use reusable packaging. Think about it. Like, you control the whole supply chain. Like, it's not like asking a consumer to return the bag and make sure I can be using it again. It's just simply good best practices inside the organization. So even though we love the story of consumers returning bags and using, how often have I walked out of the house, shopping at my local market and forget to bring the bags? Dang it, again, I forgot. So what do I buy another bag? So now I've got 15 bags that have just created more recycling problems, right? So consumers are bad starting points for this. It's really the businesses where business to business has both a mandate from an ESG perspective, and I know there's a whole story around that today, but really care about recycling and in making sure that they're good citizens in this environment. And the second thing is, it's easy for them to control. There's no other buyer for this. It's one person. It's the head of supply chain says, we're going to use these bags or these totes or whatever. So we think that that's your starting point to actually create more of a revolution and a pattern of behavior change over time. It will not happen overnight at the consumer level, but you look at the price of cardboard and you look at the price of reusable cardboard and you look at the challenges with recycling, because the minute you have, and I learned this the hard way because we backed the startup that was trying to out and get really clean reusable stuff. So if you know the problem in waste, if you have any plastic in a paper carton box or whatever, in a container that's going to be waste, it's damaged, it's useless, they throw it all out. So it's contamination is a big issue in recycling. And you have to have pure, which is hard to get for consumers. So we don't think there's going to be a time anytime soon where you're really going to keep the corrugated box business in a complete recycled model. It's just impossible. But business to business, we can do this all day long.
Like, when you're talking about it, I'm thinking to myself, how is this not already a thing?
Exactly. Where you're shipping samples to your stores, or you're doing any kind of movement of anything between entities, between the same entity, should actually be completely reusable.
The idea that we're really at the point from a global citizenship, or from a global citizenship, to question anything that's disposable and say, maybe this should not be disposable. We have a responsibility. We all have to bear that cost in some way. And we don't have that luxury of just being like tossing things out anymore. That was nice while it lasted, in my opinion.
Well, that's why the category that we're investing in is called sustainable commerce, as opposed to sustainability. Because if we can't do something that's got an effective impact on the commerce equation, then it's probably not investable. So an example of something that is investable and impacts the commerce equation is anything in the resale or rental market. We care a lot about those two markets a lot. Resale, we've been investors in Recurate from the beginning. And we believe that this notion that brands can effectively make their brands available from a resale perspective only actually increases loyalty, not decreases it. So it's going to take time, and brands are like, this is not moving they're all saying something. This is impactful. This is not impactful. But we're going to keep investing in that kind of architecture, because we do believe that has got an impact, not just on loyalty and economics, but also on the planet. We're going to try two things. One is reduce waste. So, and I can't really show you this easily. It'll be really weird. But I wear these shoes all the time because these shoes are produced in 72 hours. So these shoes right here, okay, are produced in 72 hours from design. No lasts produced in China or anywhere else. No 18-month lead times, and no size range issues. Today, you buy minimum order quantities that are way too large, because it's a minimum order quantity to cover these size ranges, and you throw most of it away. If you're a retailer or brand, you can produce very small quantities and chase inventory literally as it's being used. It also allows you to produce new styles and colors and brands much more quickly. And so we look at sometimes as changing the supply-demand distribution, as opposed to trying to fix it with some sort of magical material or some other mechanism. We'd love to see resale, but we just saw StockX got rid of reduced their size of the business. Nike's been chasing, resale for a while. It's great. If we can just chase supply and demand properly, we will be so much better off.
Producing on demand is a reduction mindset, but then there are other things they can do that they're not doing, and AI can change that. And I'll give you an example. Part of it is tied into what this is, but the idea of test and react. So you can use AI, generate some images, get a response, get feedback, and then make the things that have the good feedback and people want. Businesses have tools that they can use to forward look in ways that we never had before.
We think the simplest solution is to move as close to on demand. It also solves the China problem, which is we're not dealing with long lead times. We're not dealing with foreign governments that we can't necessarily always work with, and move into back to a more hyper-local manufacturing environment.
Well, this was incredibly amazing. We went to places I hadn't even expected, and I wish we had like 2 more hours and more time to chat.
And really appreciate all your impact you're having on the industry as well.
Oh, thank you.